everybody, welcome back to Record-ology. This is going to be very interesting. Guess what? Crosley stole somebody's radio design and they made their own and put their own brand name on it. But guess what? It was their own radio. What am I talking about? This is super interesting. You're not going to want to miss this. Welcome back to the studio. This is actually going to prove to be surprisingly nostalgic. This is not just a modern radio that they imported and came up with out of the blue. This has some history behind it. Now, before we get into the radio, I want to sort of tease you to hang in with me during this video. I want to sort of entice you to stay until the end of the video because I'm going to be showing you the Crosley 2007 catalog, which has some very interesting things that we haven't seen in quite a while. Actually, I'm kind of blown away that some of these products were sold by Crosley. We'll take a look at that later. But the man of the hour is this. This is the Crosley Maverick AM, FM, Bluetooth radio. This is part of the Crosley Legacy series. First I've ever heard of that. I hope that's a thing. This is model, or I hope that continues to be a thing, Crosley CR3042A-BK. And if we spin it around, we see a couple of images, and it looks beautiful. I was initially drawn to this unit purely based off of its looks. But then when I did a little digging, I was pleasantly surprised at what I found out in terms of its history. So the reason why that says Crosley Legacy Series is because unlike many products that are made today, especially retro ones, where they're like retro inspired, they have a retro design, or perhaps, you know, they're reminiscent of a previous product by some other company, Crosley with this is basically recreating one of their own products. And the history of that product is pretty interesting. We've got our user manual, the Maverick instruction manual, and the product itself. All right, we've got power supply. It is powered off of a wall wart, as they say. I don't like that term. I got to start saying something else. Power supply. It's a power supply. I'm never going to say wall wart again. At least I'm going to try not to. And we'll set that aside. I mean, it's not going to be a lot to set up here. It's already built, right? But this is based off of a 1950, best as I can figure. Two sources. One of them says 1950. One of them says 1950s. Radio called the Crosley JT3, which looks just like this. Surprisingly the same, with only a couple of visual differences, but pretty much looks the same. That is a beautiful radio, by the way. And if we take a look right there, you can see those holes. Sort of looks like Swiss cheese. And if that's what first came to mind, you're not the first one, because the original 1950 JT3 was known as the Swiss cheese radio due to the similarity of these holes looking like Swiss cheese. So the JT3 was a typical... Here's a little diagram. I should probably look at this diagram. We'll look at the functionality here in a minute, but first just visually take a tour. It's stunning. It is really beautiful. On the back here, some of the modern touches. Interesting, even this back panel here has that smooth finish. But we've got our antenna, which pops out of here and extends up. We've got a little port there for the cabinet to allow the bass to be a little bit more responsive, perhaps. On the back here, we have DC 9-volt input with center positive. We have an output, an input, and headphone jack. On the bottom, we have a battery compartment. It is portable. You can put in 6 AA cell batteries if you so desire. But if you want to use it as a non-portable radio without having to worry about buying new batteries all the time, you can use the included power supply that we saw. And then 4 rubberized feet, nothing on the sides, just a black panel. And there it is. I love this 3-dimensional badge here with the vintage Crosley logo on there. This is a great time to kind of talk about the material that this is made out of versus the JT3. This is black plastic, no big surprise, probably an ABS, but it feels substantial. It doesn't feel boxy and cheap. It feels like I don't know how to describe it, just a high-end, dense plastic, like a brittle, dense plastic. I'm not sure exactly what type was used here, but it is elevated above like a typical cheap ABS, and I appreciate that. It's got a beautiful piano mirror-like black finish. So again, a little bit of conflicting information here, but there are sources that say that the original JT3 was made of Bakelite, but there are sources that also say it was made from Tennite, which was a cellulose acetate made by the Eastman Chemical Company in 1929. It was more of a thermal plastic that you could melt and remelt versus Bakelite, which is a set it and you could never remelt it type of plastic. But both early plastics, one way or the other, and this has a fantastic, fantastic look, even with this recreated black ABS type of plastic. Now, everything you hear in this video is going to be an ambient recording, although it does have the headphone jack, so in theory and in practice, you can do a direct feed. But this is really about listening to the built-in speaker, the built-in amplification, etc. So apparently, I press and hold this button to power it on. Okay, I heard a little snap, so I think it popped on. And then this little LED pinhole light here, I can change the functions by clicking through the volume knob. Blue for Bluetooth, red for line in, and then there's AM and FM as well. I want to point out the fact that it does have AM as well as FM. Let's go back and we'll start with FM. By the way, plastic knob, a little bit of drag there. Feels pretty good actually. Let's go over to FM to start. There's no backlighting on this, just like the original. It's AM FM radio with Bluetooth, so you can do a lot of things. And with the aux in, you can connect a device too. Okay, so I've got it set to FM right now. And I don't have the world's best FM reception, but we should be able to get some stations. Let's see how it compares. We're just going to go through the dial in real time here. Place where angels fly. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned it, but the original was AM only. This does have a digital tuner. I love digital tuners. I think they're actually an improvement. They help you tune into stations. It's easier to lock in a station on a digital tuner, but obviously some people prefer the original. By the way, the original was a 5-tube super heterodyne radio, so that was a good radio. It was very robust, and they still work to this day. New capacitors sometimes replaced resistors and tubes, but you can actually find original working JT7s to this day. So it's a rugged radio. It was very well built from an electronic standpoint. I think this was, you know, representative of Crosley in its prime. But anyway, let's continue along the dial here.
Accurate hour-by-hour forecast. Be a step ahead before stepping out the door. Watch Channel 9 Eyewitness News this morning, weekdays starting at 4:30 a.m.
K92.3.
Bringing the best of country music to
$99. If you are one of the 50 listeners who can name a country without a letter A in its name, you'll be off for a 4-day vacation.
Every day, and we're losing it. For a new person all over again. Just when I thought I transcended.
Anywhere you see a stuff to bus box. For other ways to get involved.
Sounds really good. It's very punchy. It's loud. It's got a very warm, rich sound to it. More so than I was expecting. By the way, I didn't mention it, but it's got that kind of retro fabric grille in the back. The speaker is very well protected, which is good, I think.
Does that control us?
Video captured a small plane crashing. It's like a Cessna. Huh. Whoa. Right into a tree.
Oh, it's not a landing.
Everything that killed.
All right, that's the FM dial. I'm actually pretty impressed. I picked up more than I usually do. Also, it's interesting with digital. Sometimes you'll find what feels like 3 or 4 bands of a station, and they progress from like weaker and quieter to louder and clearer and more powerful in the middle. So, but I think that's cool. I think it's good. I think it helps me, I think, tuning into a station to get a clear signal. And hopefully that came across how clear that was. Let's go to AM. I don't get great AM reception by any means. Oftentimes I don't get any. So what we're going to do is use our little portable AM transmitter in a minute, but I wanted to give this a shot, see if I get anything on AM here. So here's AM. Nothing, but that's not a surprise. So can't pass judgment on the AM based off of that. So what we'll do is use my handy dandy little AM transmitter here, and we will test out the AM that way. So we'll go ahead and use my cassette player here. This is a type 2 cassette tape. Connect this from the cassette player to the transmitter. This is obviously intended to be the aux input for the cable for the radio, but we're going to be using it differently. We're going to be connecting it to our little transmitter here, and I'm going to set this to 700 kilohertz. Okay, and if I hit play on the tape, we should hear it now. Yeah, it's lo-fi, but it gets the job done. Okay, so the aux input, and let's also test the Bluetooth while we're at it. Okay, connects pretty easily here, and I want to listen to old-time radio on something like this. That's what I want to listen to on this. I could have used that tape player. It does transmit Bluetooth as well, but we're just gonna use something else. So here is a little old-time radio on the old-time radio.
Box 13, with the star of Paramount Pictures, Alan Ladd, as Dan Holliday.
I'm going to tell you.
Oh, be careful.
Shut up, Therese. We've got to find out what he did with that copybook.
What's the matter?
Look, he's dead.
I always have to tell this story, but playing old radio on an old radio always makes me think of my dad, who always said when I got my first Crosley, back when it could only do AM, FM radio, there was no Bluetooth. That one didn't have aux. It did have a tape player. I could have used a tape. But he said, wouldn't it be cool if you tuned in to the radio station and you picked up actual old-time radio? Kind of spooky. Well, now that can be done, obviously, through Bluetooth, connected devices, and especially if you have an AM transmitter. This can work really, really well, by the way. It's amazingly handy, especially if you have vintage radios. So that's the basic functionality. The sound is warm, it's rich, the build quality feels pretty dang good. These knobs are cheap plastic knobs. I wish that they were a little bit more robust, but for what it is, it works fine. The integration of the LED lights is done very subtly, so I don't feel like it takes away from the vintage charm. And all of the modern componentry or the modern connectivity is in the back, so it doesn't, disrupt the look and feel of this radio. I think this is a very nice desktop radio for a variety of functions. So I would highly, highly recommend this. And although to me it's just a new JT3, but if you want to call it the Maverick, I suppose you can do that too. So a viewer sent me this, and I don't even know if they make catalogs anymore, but they should, because this is very, very cool. Now, I'm an old school person. I come from an era of looking at catalogs, and as a kid, you'd fantasize about toys and, things that you wanted, things that were interesting, and you would just think about it. And if you could talk your parents into letting you order something, this sort of harkens back to that era. But check this out. This is from 2007. I'm not going to read it to you, but it's very cool if you ever get your hands on one. Very kind gift from a viewer. History of Crosley Radio. By the way, to people that just instantly want to hate on Crosley, they have a very rich heritage, and they've had some misses in the last 25 years, but they've had some very solid wins as well. And it's okay to have fun with electronics. It's okay to be vintage themed with electronics. Also, I want to point out they're an American company. They don't make suitcase players. They don't make anything for anybody else. They're not trying to sneak their products under other brand names. It's not a Chinese company. It's an American company. Anyway, so look at this. This is one of those wooden all-in-ones with the Stack-O-Matic built in. I know a lot of people have talked about wanting those back. Here's some different wooden ones. Man, the finish on some of these looks fantastic. I wish they would bring back some of these styles. And there is the Stack-O-Matic, the last changer on the market. I'm like you guys. I wish they would bring that back. I haven't heard any inkling of that happening, but look at this. Antique with these legs there and classroom style there. Some of these early all-in-ones had CD recorders. That feature has really dropped away. People don't feel the need to want to record their CDs anymore. The conductor, the musician, the entertainer, the maestro, the concerto, the celebrity. So many different flavors of all-in-ones. Now these are really cool. These look legit vintage. They all look vintage, but this type of wraparound woodwork on these floor standing units, it's not something you see. Look at the computer that they're using as an example. It's got like a CRT and a tower PC. We reviewed a black version of something that was derivative of that down the road. So those things may not surprise you. You may be like, yeah, that's what I would expect from Crosley. Maybe some furniture too, some stands, some record support, cleaning accessories, 45, what does this say? Stackmate 45 cartridge. I think that was a spindle for the 45 changer. Some radios. This is more of that modern with a splash of vintage feel to it. Some different radios here. The Corsair. Look at this. XM ready radios. You don't see that very much either, especially worked into a vintage design. Then we got the jukeboxes. Crosley jukeboxes. Look at this one. Digital jukebox. It's got like a screen in there. That's really, really interesting. Crosley now partners with a UK company to make very high quality, very nice, full bubbler, full size changers. I saw at CES, can't believe it's been 5 years ago now. They had a 78 changer jukebox and a 45. They were both very well done. Cathedral radios. There's some 50s style mini Bluetooth enabled, or actually a lot of these even predate Bluetooth. This is 2007. That's back when Bluetooth was like for your Jabra to make conference calls, but not for music. There was a long while before Bluetooth could handle the fidelity of music in a convincing way. In fact, people may not realize that Bluetooth is like a continuous evolution. It's, there's different iterations constantly coming out, higher resolutions. We have lossless Bluetooth now. Not a whole lot of devices we've reviewed have it. But yeah, look at the Diner jukebox. They have a newer version of that that's a miniature Bluetooth speaker. Some more jukeboxes. These look like medium-sized tabletop units. This is kind of cool. A talent show kit microphone and stand. Telephones. Oh, this is so cool. Look at this, like an old 50s payphone. That is so, so cool. With the push button, dialing, but made to look like rotary. I remember rotary dialing. My grandma and grandpa had that. All different types of phones. The princess phone, the kettle desk phone. This is cool. The country wall phone. I have family that still own a ranch in the Midwest, and they would have a party line. They would crank that up, and we still had the radio. I think it was here, or it was in Colorado when we lived there, and I think it made its way back to the farm. But you would crank up this crank on the side, and you could listen to the party line, and they would listen there and gossip and things. But that is an actual memory of seeing one of those, a real one of those. music boxes. Not only music boxes, but with the little animated scenes. We have one. In fact, I think we have, maybe it's this one. We have one of these. No, it's not this one. It has like bells on the top. The one that I have plays discs, perforated discs, but it's sold under the Mr. Christmas brand. So similar product. There's more wind-up music boxes, snow globes, miniature music boxes. These little tiny Matchbox music boxes. I have one of these. In fact, I think I have this one, but mine is green, and I forget what song it plays. Ornaments, musical ornaments. So there it is. See, I told you it was cool. That's really neat. I wish they would bring some of those vintage products back. All right, my friends, and that's going to do it. Thank you for joining us. I hope you found that interesting. Don't forget our merch. Don't forget our 45 adapters. Don't forget, subscribe to our membership program and reap the benefits of early access to some shows, exclusive content. And if that isn't enough content, we have our other channel, Detour with Record-ology, where we go on a lot of non-record related adventures, and you are invited. Links to all that stuff down below. But that's going to do it for now. So happy record hunting, and we'll see you next time.